Lots to cover. But first, as protests against police brutality continued this week, controversial historical monuments were brutally torn down in numerous American cities. A statue of Confederate President Jefferson Davis was toppled in Richmond, Virginia, and several statues of Christopher Columbus were brought down, including one that was beheaded in Boston, Massachusetts, early Wednesday. 4 statues at a Confederate memorial in Portsmouth, Virginia, were decapitated by protesters as well. And this cultural cleansing shows no signs of abating. Joining me now to discuss the ongoing protests and the violence in cities all over the country and what's driving the Black Lives Matter movement, I'm joined by the national spokesman of the Congress of Racial Equality, Niger Innis. Niger, thanks for being with us. The nexus of these protests and the focus, it seems to me, is Black Lives Matter. That moniker is all over social media. I even see students linking to their website. What is this organization and what are its goals? Let's start there.
Well, Raymond, first of all, it is a pleasure to be on with you. I've been a big fan of yours for many, many years, seeing you, talking to you privately and publicly on Laura Ingram's program, and it's a real pleasure to be on with you. One little correction, I actually got a promotion to become national chairman of the Congress of Racial Equality, which is my title. I don't think I've changed it all in Wikipedia and all my social links.
Well, there you go.
So no worries there.
You announced it here.
I just wanted to let you know about, what's that?
You've announced it here. Yeah. I'm glad.
Yeah, and that's right. I've made breaking news on your program. Listen, it's very important, and this is a very, very serious issue. What's going on in our country is extraordinarily serious. The protesters in the street, I want to disconnect, if we will, the protesters in the street. The overwhelming majority of them are decent Americans trying to do the black and white, in fact, more whites than blacks and Hispanics and Asians that are just trying to do the right thing. We all saw what happened to George Floyd and we were all abhorred. I think in the beginning there was like a poll taken within a few days of the video going viral, and 96% of Americans said what happened there was immoral, was wrong, and the cops should be prosecuted. Now, I distinguish those kids and others out there protesting. I distinguish Pat Mahomes, who is doing some extraordinary things, Michael Jordan, who's doing some extraordinary things. Their heart and their soul is in the right place. I detach that from the founders of the Black Lives Movement. One of the founders of the Black Lives Movement, who was just recently on Meet the Press, Elisa Garza, and she doesn't hide this, Raymond. I'm not saying this about her. This is what she says about herself. This is what's on her own Wikipedia page. She says that she is a Marxist. If you look at her affiliations, they are all left-wing and Marxist. One of the other people that founded the organization has a picture that she proudly spreads throughout Facebook with Maduro in Venezuela. Okay, so the fact that these founders, the three, and by the way, I was just yesterday, this is total coincidence, just yesterday I'm listening to NPR, because I like to hear all sides, all points of view to get my news, and I was listening to NPR, and they had a representative of Black Lives Matter. And they asked this young man, what is the difference between this extraordinary new civil rights movement, or what are the parallels with this extraordinary civil rights movement and the civil rights movement of the 1950s and 60s? And this young man said, listen, when you had the movement in the 1950s and 60s, they were male-dominated. Essentially, it was one leader, be it Malcolm X or be it Martin Luther King. It was a one person in leadership that the movement rallied around. This is different, and it's different fundamentally for 2 reasons. One, it's decentralized. There are a variety of different leaders. And 2, a big difference is the fact that this was founded by feminist, queer, women. 3 feminist queer women. I didn't say that. He said that, and he said it proudly. And Raymond, if you just go to their own website, because everybody keeps saying, what do they want? What do they want? And we keep talking about defund the police. That's just the beginning. That's just the tip of the iceberg, Raymond. If you go to their website, blacklivesmatter.com, you look and it says, one of the planks among many, we disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family, and I want to read it verbatim so that I don't get accused of misquoting. Yeah. We disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family structure requirement by supporting each other as extended families and villages, etc., etc. And then another plank, we foster a queer affirming network. When we gather, we do so with the intention of freeing ourselves from the tight grip of heteronormative thinking, or rather the belief that all in the world are heterosexual unless he or she discloses otherwise. Now, listen, you and I and many of your viewers disagree with that agenda, okay? And we can argue, that it's right, that it's wrong. And that's the beauty of our great country, is that we have the First Amendment right to organize, to petition our government, to have a point of view, and to express that point of view. But
well, Niger, my question is, how does that advance the cause of racial equality, and what tangible impact do those agenda items have in the black community that you know so well?
That's exactly the point, Raymond. Those agenda items, Marxist mentality in this freest country in the world that immigrants try to die to get to, does nothing for the black community. It does nothing to advance racial equality. Having a disruption of the nuclear family is a clear and present danger to the black community. If you want to look at the crisis within the black community, the fact that black on black crime is a pandemic in the black community and has been for decades. You can directly trace that back to the fact that fathers have been chased away from homes due to government policy and sometimes our culture, and sometimes, quite frankly, due to irresponsibility. We all know, it's not just the black family. Pardon?
Yeah. No, it's all. You're right. It's all Hispanics, whites. It's across the board in American culture.
It's a crisis for all of us, and the fact that they want to disrupt the nuclear family, that is not only something that's going to not forward racial equality, it's going to hold black people back.
Now, there are calls to defund the police. You mentioned it a moment ago, to get rid of the police force in localities. I saw a tweet last night that said BLM is defund the police. Defund the police is Black Lives Matter. And that was from their official website. Now, look, there's no disputing George Floyd's death was a disgrace. It was an outrage, morally and otherwise. And I've seen other cases of black and white people dying at the hands of police. What policies should Americans be urging now vis-a-vis police and those they encounter?
I think the people in the community do not want less police. They want less bad police. Every profession has bad apples. Lawyers, doctors, football players, media commentators, civil rights leaders.
Hey, be careful there.
Apples. I'm sorry, I didn't mean media commentators. They're all good.
Thank you.
But they all professions have bad apples. The community wants less bad police. They want more. I was just talking with somebody and they said, why don't they do what folk used to do in the old days in fraternities? You have a fraternity and you have a couple of bad actors in that fraternity and you go out, you take them behind the barn and you kick their butt. Not because you want to hurt them, but because you want to help them. You want to save them. And that's what the people in the community want. But they actually want more and increased police community presence. They want more engagement by the police. They want more intervention by the police, and they want more of a partnership between the police and decent people in the community. You know this, Raymond. The number of unarmed blacks that have died at the hand of police in the entirety of 2019 is less than 15. I've heard estimates 15, I've heard it as low as 8, but let's say less than 15. The number of blacks killed by other blacks nationwide is 5,000, was 5,000. It's actually more, much more than 5,000 in 2019. In Chicago alone, the number of blacks that have died is 60 over the last several weeks. You know, come on. This is we're talking about a little speck when the entire body of Black America is dying.
I want you to react to something. I only have 2 minutes, Niger. In a recent USA Today article entitled "A Letter to My Former White Friend," a black woman writes to her white friend. I want to read you a couple of excerpts here. She says, "I've noticed the distinct absence of any comments on the prolific murders of black people in America. My ancestors picked cotton until blood ran red from their fingers. Their lives did not matter in America. They were 3/5 a man. They were commodities. They were disposable. So do you think I'm disposable too? Is that why you will not say Black Lives Matter? I'm fine with us not being friends anymore, truly. Being friends with someone who denies blackness is exhausting. This letter is not an invitation for friendship. This letter is a request. This letter is a plea. This letter is a tombstone." Now, your reaction to that, Niger, obviously laced with pain, but there's that line, we've heard it over again. Why won't you say Black Lives Matter? Say that line. Why is that important?
Look, what I say is, of course, it's absurd to even the whole concept of the question itself. Of course, Black Lives Matter, but I think white lives matter too. I think Asian lives matter. I think Hispanic lives matter. By the way, I think blue lives matter. Okay, I think. By the way, I think all Black lives matter, not just those killed by white police. In other words, from the womb to the tomb, I believe Black lives matter. And for those who believe in life, as I do, we know who founded Planned Parenthood. We know that it was Margaret Sanger, who was a eugenicist that wanted to wipe out undesirables. And it wasn't just blacks she was talking about. She was talking about Italian Americans, immigrants who were coming into the country at that time in the early part of the 20th century. She was talking about Eastern Europeans, Jews and Catholics. She was talking about whatever you label the undesirables of the day. And that is the entity that is promoting abortion in communities of color to this very day. And you can be sure that the Marxists who run the BLM movement will never utter a word about that reality. The fact that that organization was founded to destroy Black lives.
Niger Innis, a powerful way to end. We will leave it there. Hope you'll come back. You can follow Niger Innis's work at the Congress of Racial Equality at thecongressofracialequality.org. Thanks again, Niger.
Thank you, Raymond.